gentlemen, before I start the topic of interlimiting membrane surgery, I would like to thank Dr. Zira, Dr. Khosla, and the IHP for this invitation. Internal limiting membrane surgery is not very old. In fact, the first publication of a large number of cases was done in 2000. And I very well remember seeing ILM surgery done at the American Retina Society way back in 1998. And it was really amazing to see that the retina is being teased and a layer of the retina being taken out. Prior to that, we just used to remove the epiretinal tissue. ILM, I think there were nice photographs shown by Dr. Saad and other people of the retina. Basically, it's a basement membrane of the Muller cells which separates physically the cortical vitreous and the neurosensory retina. One thing is that it's extremely thin, it's 2.5 microns, and it is transparent. My encounter with the ILM surgery was much prior to 2000, and it happened by serendipity, where I was operating a case of a vitreous hemorrhage secondary to the Turson syndrome. After I removed the vitreous hemorrhage, I found a cystic cavity on the macula, and later on I realized that that was the internal limiting membrane. I think a short video of that. This was way back in 1992. Where you see this internal limiting membrane, it has been peeled out by the blood, and it looks and feels like an anterior capsule. Most of the work has been done on the macular hole. However, there have been anecdotal reports about its significance, that's the significance of removal in the diabetic maculopathy, epiretinal membrane removal, CRVO, VRVO. Basically, in 1988, Dr. Donald Gass and Dr. Johnson came out with the theory that the idiopathic macular hole is formed by the tangential traction caused by the cortical vitreous. And if you want to close the hole, that is flatten the cuff of the fluid, you got to remove this tangential fluid, tangential traction. And the first work on it was done by Kelly and Wandel. And what they did was, they did a vitrectomy, removed the hyaloid phase, put in the gas and the phase down position for 2 weeks. This was again an early case which I did using the same technique. Where you see with the soft tip, I'm removing the cortical vitreous. It's called a fish strike sign. And once the cortex is removed, we fill in the eye with the air. Try to have as much removal of the fluid as possible, so you get a very dry retinal area, and keep a face down position. This was again the same patient, a very old this slice. This is a macular hole. Just by removing the cortical vitreous, there is no hole, and a significant improvement in the visual acuity. As I mentioned, Kelly and Mendel came out with a result of 58%, and afterwards, as our understanding improved and our technique of surgery improved, we had an improvement in the results. However, it was realized that the cortical vitreous is not the only level of tangential traction. There are other points of traction, like epiretinal membrane. In a macular cases, we find in around 15 to 20% there is an epiretinal membrane. And recently, that's what my topic is today, that the ILM also influences the traction. And removal of this ILM has a significant effect on the anatomical and the visual results. This is just to show an exaggerated case of an epiretinal membrane causing the macular hole. As you can see that, and removal of it definitely will close the hole. What is the rationale and why do we remove the epiretinal membrane? One obvious reason I mentioned about is to relieve all the tangential traction. Other is that it provides a scaffold on which the glial cells, they have a nidus and they proliferate, and they would be responsible for the hole enlargement and it prevents a closure. One other important thing which I have noticed and most of the other surgeons have noticed is that once you remove the ILM is like a binding structure for the retina. Once you remove the ILM, the retina becomes extremely mobile and what you see, the whole size shrinking. In fact, after I started removing ILM, majority of the holes actually close, not only flatten the edges, but they close and disappear, these holes. And of course, another very significant factor is that it reduces the face down position. Previously, I used to keep the patient face down around 14 days, and now I do it only for 5 to 7 days. As I said, one of the early articles by Brooks Jr. in 2000, he did ILM peeling in 169 patients of less than 6 months duration, and the result was astonishingly 100%. All eyes macular hole closed. There were many other results as well. Another significant thing I would like to mention is that the ILM is transparent and it becomes technically very challenging to remove that ILM. It's a thin transparent structure. So basically what you need is a color coding of the ILM. Just like, for example, you take a tissue and you put it in a microscope, you'll see everything white. But if you say stain it with H&E, some will stain red, pink, and some will stain blue. The same thing what we do it with the ILM. And what I use is ICG, and a little bit about pros and cons, we'll talk later on about the ICG. This is just a video film to show the different cases of macular hole. I've done it. This was a failed macular hole case. We did a surgery by standard technique, removed the vitreous, and it failed. So we are going in for ILM surgery. You see I've stained the ILM, which stains green, emerald green with ICG, and you use a BARC MVR blade to initiate this ILM peel. It's important thing, when you come on the macular hole, don't pull it off, because next film you'll see how strong the ILM is attached to the macular hole. So once you remove, you just need maybe a disc area around it, not a non-extensive peel. And of course the same thing which you do after that, put in air and then the gas and a face down position. Now this was a very interesting case. It was a stage 4 hole, and you will see in this patient the extreme traction exerted by the ILM. Look at the edges of the hole. The edges are very, very jagged. And I never thought that this hole will close, but I have a photograph which I'm going to show you. It totally closes. And look at the traction provided by the ILM. If you don't remove this ILM, this hole will never close. So if you had done a classic surgery, you would have the hole open. Look at this traction. I have a couple of patients which there's significant traction on the edges of the macular hole. And this was a traumatic young boy with a traumatic macular hole. I first delineated the vitreous with the triamcinolone. It fills the macular hole. Once you remove this vitreous, again you do the same thing. Remove the ILM by staining it. But one of the side effects of ILM I'm going to show you, sometimes there can be a bleeding. And most of the time this bleeding is it doesn't increase if it is only the retinal capillary bleeding. I'll just show you a few other cases which was done. This was a traumatic case which you saw now. A macular hole is there. This is after a period of 2 weeks, the hole is closed. Still the gas is there. And this is after 2 months, the hole is gone. A very significant improvement in the visual acuity. This was the hole with the jagged hole I showed you, the one which extreme traction on this. And this was the hole was gone after the surgery. That's another patient, again with the macular hole with the traction. Did the ILM peel and the hole is gone. More and more patients I'm having where the hole not only flattens the edges but it disappears. And there's very significant improvement in the visual acuity. And this is another patient with a hole. and the hole is gone. There's some kind of a disturbance of RPE also is there in this patient. So basically, what are the indications of ILM-P? Basically, I do it in all macular hole cases if possible. But definitely you have to do it as a larger hole, stage 3-4 hole, chronic holes, or as a primary failures, or the holes have reopened. ILM peeling benefit, definitely a very good, significant improvement in visual and anatomical results. But the most important thing I feel for the patient compliance is the reduction in the face down position to just 5 days. This is another video film of ILM with epiretinal membrane. I don't do it frequently, but I read few articles and I tried to do this surgery. This was an ILM case. Again, I'm staining with an ICG. Same initiation of the ILM with the MVR grade. You can see the contrast. The bare retina is not stained, whereas the ILM is stained green. ICG does not stain the epiretinal tissue or the vitreous cortex. Now, if you see, I am removing both the ILM as well as the epiretinal membrane. And now you see, I am just holding the epiretinal membrane. The epiretinal membrane is removed, and this is the whole epiretinal membrane is removed. And underneath, this is the ILM. This is the ILM which is separated. And here we are removing the ILM now. What are the adverse effects of ILM removal? Basically, they are minor effects, like sometimes you get this whitening of the retina where you touch the MVR blade, you get little bleeding out there. Rarely, if the bleeding is more and you get the patient in face down position, the blood comes in front and you get hyphema. But the more dangerous one are the retinal tear formation and the enlargement of the hole if you are not careful when you're peeling the ILM from the edges of the hole. And of course, there's a question of ICG toxicity, the dye which you use it. There are a number of articles, after people started using ICG in 2000, a number of articles which said the side effect, and one of the articles suggested there is a alteration of the cleavage plane. Means it does not remain at the retina and the ILM level, but it goes inside the retina. So what you're removing is ILM with some of the retinal tissue. And then again, RP enzyme deficiency et al. Come with an article on mitochondrial enzyme this thing damage with the ICG, and there are many articles came, but one other one was a hypoosmolarity. They suggested that the ICG damages this because ICG you cannot dilute it with BSS plus. You have to dilute initially with the aqueous solvent, and therefore there is hypoosmolarity and the damage. So basically, this toxicity of the ICG depends on concentration, osmolarity, pH, time. What I do to reduce it is that before I used to use a 0.5%, now I use a 0.1%, and I dilute it initially with the aqueous and the rest with the BSS. I don't put the ICG under air, but just under the infusion, and the contact time is less than one minute. There is a good improvement in the visual acuity. Thanks for your patient hearing.